So this problem is much harder. We have two transversals, and whenever you have two transversals, as long as you know one angle on each of the transversals, you can find all the other angles. So we know in this case that the measure of angle 1 is 20 degrees. We know that, which is actually this little angle, we know that the measure of angle 9 is 90 degrees. Therefore, by the definition of perpendicular lines, we know that all of these are 90 degrees. And we also know that all of these are 90 degrees because they correspond. So I'm putting my right angle symbols in there. So that's easy enough, right? So go ahead and see if you can figure out how to find the rest of the angles and be thinking about your definitions as you do it. And then pause and come back. Here are the answers. Since I knew that angle 1 was 20 degrees and that this entire angle here, where 1 and 2 combined give you 90 degrees, I know that angle 2 has to be 70. Therefore, angle 5 has to be 70. And angle 4 here has to be 20 to add to 70 to get a 90-degree angle. And then if I keep moving down this red transversal, I know that angle 7 has to be 70 because it's alternate interior to angle 5. And then from there, angle 7 is vertical to angle 10, so angle 10 is 70 degrees. Now, and there's several ways to do this, by the way. I also can figure out that this big angle is 110 degrees where the A is. That's 110 degrees because of it being supplementary to angle 10. And therefore angle 6 is also 110 degrees because it's vertical where we see this A. Another way we could have figured out the 110, if you didn't think of this, is by looking at angles 4 and 3 together. Angles 4 and 3 together, 20 plus 90 gives me 110. Same thing up here. 90 plus 20 gives me 110. So those two vertical angles add up to 110. And the corresponding angles, the corresponding angle for this one up here is going to be angle 6, and the corresponding angle for this big one down here is going to be angle A. Now, to help you visualize, because this can be kind of difficult, I think it's really helpful to have different colors for your different transversals, and you'll want to use colored pencils on your test to help you with this. And you want to look from the transversal all the way to the parallel line to find the angle that goes with that transversal. Now, another thing you can do is you can take your drawing and you can break it apart to help you visualize. So I could come in and draw my red transversal and start finding my angles that way. I knew that this was 70 here. I figured that out. So this is 70. This is 70. Excuse me. This one's 70. And this one's 70. And from there I know everything else is 110. I just have to be careful when it comes to adding the angles together to get those big angles up here, that I'm careful as to which angles go with which transversals. Scroll to the next page and try this problem. I would recommend that you make each transversal its own color to help you, or break it apart into two different pictures and then put it back together. Pause and come back to check. So I know that the measure of angle 2 is 100 degrees. So here's where we start with the measure of angle 2. And I know that the measure of angle 6 is 40 degrees. So those are the two given pieces of information. Now, one thing that may help you, although you could figure this out without knowing this, but it can be helpful, is that the interior angles of triangles equal 180 degrees. So this triangle right here and this triangle right here add up to 180. You can see 40 plus 60 plus 80 is 180 degrees. 40 plus 60 plus 80 is 180 degrees. So again, try to visualize from your transversal all the way over to your parallel line when you're trying to identify your different angles. Take a second and check your work. Next, try this problem. Pause and then turn this back on when you're done. So let's look at this one. It can be a little bit confusing to look at, so let me talk it through for a minute. So here's our given, 40 and 120. Well, since 14 is 40, 11 is 40, and then 13 is 140, and 12 is 140 to work with supplementary angles. So now the tricky part is coming down the orange parallel line to the angles that are down here. So corresponding with angle 13 is actually going to be angles 5 and 6 right here together. From the orange transversal to my purple parallel line, that entire angle corresponds with 13. So it's really two angles together according to this picture. What corresponds with angle 14 is angle 10, orange transversal to our purple parallel line. What corresponds with angle 11 is angle 7 down here, and what corresponds with angle 12 is angles 8 and 9 right here. Again, orange transversal to the purple parallel line. So if we go to the green transversal, start with the 120. We know that 3 is 120, 1 is 60 because it's supplementary, 4 is 60 because it would also be supplementary and vertical. Let's come down the green transversal. So the angle that's going to correspond with angle 1 is going to be angle 5 from the green transversal to the purple parallel line. This little tiny angle here starts with the green transversal. Then angle 120, if you come down, is actually going to come from here all the way around to there. So it's from the green transversal to the purple parallel line, this 120, and corresponds with angle 2. Then if we look at angle 4 is going to correspond with angle 9, again from the green transversal around to the purple parallel line. This little tiny angle here, angle 9, is the one that corresponds with angle 4. Then if you look at angle 3, it's going to correspond with this big angle here, which is angles 7 and 8 combined. It's from the green transversal all the way to the purple parallel line. So after you're finished checking, move on to the next problem. Go ahead and try this problem, pause, and then come back to it. So here we know that angle 1 is given as 130 degrees, angle 7 is given as 80 degrees. So that's our given. So these four should be pretty easy to figure out over here. So now let's move over to these what I have is the green and red transversal intersecting each other. Well, since this is 80, this down here is 80 as well because they're vertical angles. And then from there, I know that angle 8 is going to correspond with angle 2 up here because these two lines here are parallel to one another. I know that angle 2 and angle 8 are corresponding angles. I also know that angle 1 corresponds with 6 and 7 together. Green transversal to the purple line, or actually it's the purple transversal to the green parallel, purple transversal to the green parallel. So angle 1 and angle 6 and 7 correspond. So both of those are 130 degrees. Then if I move down here, I know that angle 5 corresponds with angle 3, so angle 5 is 50. And I know that angles 10 and 9 are going to correspond with angle 4. So 10 and 9 together are 130 degrees. And then obviously angle 9 is going to be 50 because 130 minus 80 gives me 50. And the same thing happens up here for angle 6. Since this is 100, let's see, it's 130, angles 6 and 7 are 130. And this angle 7 is 80. That means that angle 6 has to be 50 degrees because 130, this whole angle here, minus 80 equals 50 degrees. Excellent work with all these problems. That's a whole lot to process, and you have this video to watch.